place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, November 1st, 2024, and this is episode 968 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it's a Friday show, so it is a Homestead Happenings show. And how many of you are stoked to hear about all the latest stuff on the homestead? Ooh, backlighting. Yeah.
Just get that out of the way now.
Tactical will be with me today. And how do you like my new sign? Did you notice my new sign? He's not interacting with me yet because he's still fussing.
I didn't realize you were talking to me.
I was. Check it out. So Benchmark Signs made that for me, and it's pretty cool. I actually should move the microphone to here so people can hear you. Does that sound good? Yeah.
Probably to them.
Anyway.
Well, maybe.
Tactical, are you feeling overwhelmed this week?
There's a lot going on.
Yeah? Like what?
I mean, I've got fencing stuff that I'm trying to finally get around to. Cookville was a living hell.
Tactical doesn't like going to town. He went to town twice this week. So that was like super awesome. Beth Emily says, very nice sign. Good morning, Curie. And Pat Grat is giving you guys great advice. Hit the like while you're thinking about it and share this out on social media if you think some folks might be interested in hearing about what life is really like on a homestead, which is what we're all about today. We're going to talk about ram processing, rain, duck compost, and a whole bunch more today. Got a whole list of stuff. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you that tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we have the Partnering with Trees workshop here at 10 o'clock in Lancaster, Tennessee. Tickets are $90 and include your lunch. I have one seat left only, but if you want that seat, go to livingfreeintennessee.com, and at the top, you can just register for that. And I'll email you after the show about how to get here and all of those good things. We're having homemade chicken soup. We are having sandwich makings as makings. So those of you who don't eat bread can have lettuce wraps. We are having some side salads that are pretty awesome. And then, of course, we'll have normal snacks. And I have it on good authority. There might be some homemade cookies being baked as part of the class, but that has nothing to do with the class. The class is awesome, too. So Carrie's talking about how to assess your homestead for putting in trees. And it's a little different than a food forest thing. It's more like, what are the various functions that trees can serve on your homestead? How do you assess your homestead for what functions you need and want? And then how do you pick the right kind of trees that will do well in your environment? After the class, we are going to plant some trees. I don't know. I have 2 apple trees from the food forest install that have done really poopy for 2 years. And those are going to come out. And I want to put in an old timey crabapple tree from the area. And we've sourced the tree, but we have to take a cutting from the tree and root the cutting. So that's not going to happen. But I've got some pecan trees going in and some other stuff. We are also still looking for local witch hazel, which we've identified a plant for that, but we have not taken cuttings from it. And a couple other trees coming in. So this class is not about how do you plant a tree, although we will show you how to plant a tree successfully as part of it. It's more about how to choose the trees, how to source the trees, how to build function stacking in. Wow, that was like a 3-time stutter there, wasn't it? Yeah, function stacking into the thing. It's going to be an awesome class. And Carrie's a really good teacher. So I can't wait for that class tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's really nice to have a class that I can keep to 5 people, which was our goal. Well, we have 4 people. But anyway, so that people have plenty of time to get their questions in and bring up challenges they have on their own property that they want to address. So that's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. I also want to thank our 2 sponsors of today's show. Do you know who they are?
Nope.
Why not?
I haven't looked at your
show notes.
Yeah.
Okay. Discount Mylar Bags has been a part of this community since my podcast started. Go over to discountmylarbags.com to not only find Mylar bags sourced in bulk and those savings passed on to you, but also a bunch of resources on how to store food. They have more than Mylar bags, though. They have all sorts of things about food preservation and food storage. Check it out, discountmylarbags.com. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Who's our second sponsor today?
I still haven't looked at your show notes.
Tactical can't read.
Oh.
Anyway, it's Kangen water. Kangen water is something I've built into my life recently that's helped me with some ongoing muscle aches. And it's hydrogen water. Basically, it's an electrolysis machine. You hook it up to your faucet and you put it in, like it adds hydrogen to the water, which makes it easier to absorb, which makes you more high. Wow, I'm stuttering today.
Apparently.
That's weird. It's like I have a short circuit up there.
You very well might.
Okay. I don't think that was a compliment. Anyway, it makes you more hydrated, and it also functions as it has antioxidant capacities. Check out more at kangenwatercollective.com. You're going to have to do the talking for the show, Tactical.
It's going to be a really boring show.
I'm pretty sure. Anyway, Carrie's cleaning briskets for the smoker and roasting beef bones for broth while listening. I just made bone broth from the chickens to make the chicken soup for the workshop tomorrow. And I don't usually do it that way, but I wanted to make sure that the soup was absolutely 100% chicken. And I usually do like multiple different animals for broth. So I roasted it, and then I simmered it with some other things and just made sure the entire chicken soup has no red meat in it, because I don't know, but I will say that at every workshop we've done for the past 2 years, we've had at least one person with alpha-gal, which means they're allergic to pork and beef and lamb and all of that. And so I like to have an option that's 100% safe for them. And I thought, well, chicken soup at this time of year is perfect. That being said, what do you think the temperature is going to be tomorrow on November 2nd?
I'm going to guess and say between 75 and 80 based on the last week, and I haven't actually looked at the weather. So
Sunday, we've got the highest day of the week, and that is 80 degrees. And tomorrow it's going to be in the mid 70s, which isn't exactly soup weather, which is why we've added some cold dishes to the lunch as well. So, and my role in this event is to get people excited about the class and then cook lunch. So, and take the class. That's my role. Okay. Which is different than, like, usually I'm teaching and there's a lot more struggle there. So Carrie, I love bone broth, and that's cool. DFW's on today. More Holler roast might be needed. Yeah, my mouth is not working right today, and it's more of it's in my head, and I don't know what's up with that, because that's actually, it's almost like COVID brain fog is hitting me right now.
You have COVID again?
I hope not. That would be really freaking inconvenient right now.
Yeah.
But I don't feel sick. I've been swimming in the pool every day this week.
Maybe that's it.
Right after this show, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a call about finances. After that, I'm going to swim in the pool in the rain, because today it's raining. But that's the whole reason we got that. Okay, so let's go back to actual homestead stuff. About a month ago, we had our first freeze here. And I harvested all the green tomatoes. I actually took the tomato wall down. We probably could have gotten more tomato growth this month in hindsight, having seen how it didn't actually freeze, and it hasn't had anything near 32 degrees since then. But I was ready to clean it up anyway, and just get a reset in on all the gardens going into fall, and then get them prepped for next winter. So I have on my counter a big collection of green tomatoes, and all month, some of them have been turning red, and then we've been eating them, right? Mm-hmm. They've been in salads. They've been in different dishes. And it's sort of a game I play every morning. Like, I get up and I look at all the green tomatoes, and there'll be ones that are starting to turn like in the back, and I'll bring them forward to the red area.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. So we are about a month after harvest. I'm still getting tomatoes from the green tomato harvest. At some point, I'll decide these tomatoes are never going to turn red, and we'll have one big last hoo-ha with fried green tomatoes for dinner. But last night, I had not planned a big meal for dinner. So usually I get all the meat out for the week. And this week I didn't do that because I didn't want to go into Saturday's workshop with a bunch of leftovers in the fridge. Like, I view leftovers in the fridge as awesome, because then you can just have the one leftover night or whatever. Or if you're hungry during the day, I can heat something up and you can eat that. Or I can eat that. It depends on who's hungry. And so like leftovers are awesome as long as you keep them rotating through, but they're not awesome when you need the fridge space for like cold cuts and cheeses and pickled things and trays and platters for a workshop. And I'm not using the outdoor fridge anymore because we're into that part of the season. So I was like, crap, I didn't defrost anything for dinner. And so my choice is get into the new cow and make steak because that's fast. Which I'm trying to not get into the new cow at all until the old cow is done, with the exception of any organ meats. And then the other choice is to once again make taco meat, but we just had taco meat the night before. He would have said nothing about it, but we had leftover taco meat yesterday. So finally I'm like, you know what? I've got shrimp in the freezer and I cooked those from frozen. And so what I did is I sauteed up garlic and onions and jalapeno peppers because those are coming out of the garden right now. And then to that, I ended up adding all of the red tomatoes that we had from the countertop, except for I saved a few for the salad. And then I added a lot of basil and then the shrimp. And then I topped it off with Swiss chard at the very end. And I put a little bit of mushroom soy sauce in there just for a little bit of flair. And that was what happened is because when you cook shrimp, they really they release a lot of liquid. It almost ended up like a soup, right?
Somewhat.
Yeah. So there's a lot of extra liquid in there.
Yeah.
But it was like a stew soup thing. And so that's what we had for dinner last night. What's your assessment of that?
It was good. It was really good. And then I actually took a little bit of the
taco meat
and threw some of the liquid on the taco meat to add a little bit more moisture back into that, and that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I did that for my second helping too, because I was like, oh, I got to eat this taco meat, but most of the shrimp was gone by then, so I just poured the broth over my taco meat.
Yeah,
it was pretty delicious. So that's our recipe for the week. As usual, the recipe is not a recipe. It's a collection of ingredients, and you get to figure out. Oh, I put celery in it too when I did that initial saute. Yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah, because I have some extra celery. I didn't have enough celery for this chicken soup, and then now I do. Oh, I need to get egg noodles today. That's on my list. I'm going to cook egg noodles on the side for the chicken soup so that people who can have wheat can have chicken noodle soup, but those who can't. So that is a thing that needs to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The chickens have been getting in my one raised bed with the Swiss chard and eating the Swiss chard and digging it up, which is a problem. So the anti-chicken defense system will be installed today. I know exactly what I'm going to do for that. And I wasn't sure they'd keep getting in, but then yesterday they got in again and dug up the same 3 plants I keep replanting that are looking really sad right now. And then they're eating leaves. So I'm not getting the Swiss chard. They are, and I'm actually growing that for me. So that's sad. But long term, that space, I think, will have a way to close chickens out, right?
I was going to say that we should have the conversation about just fencing that whole area in.
Yeah. So, but we have to do it in a way that doesn't block access for 4-wheelers to other parts of the property. So, yeah. So that's just a deal. And until all the raised beds are in and the whole system is in, I'm not sure we want to put the fence in.
I think we could put 3/4 of the fence in and then just string some temporary plastic netting or something over the rest of it until we're ready to finish it off.
We could put chicken netting in and turn it on and let them get zapped, and then maybe they'll hate it.
Possibly.
Yeah. Chickens are dumb. So I know I'm supposed to be getting rid of chickens, guys, but because the ducks are molting, I'm not getting rid of them just yet. And part of why I don't love free-range chickens on the homestead is they do things like this, but at the same time, they do serve a function. So I go back and forth on it. But right now, I am getting chicken eggs and not duck eggs. So there we go. No. You told me the ducks are starting to lay again. Is that really true?
I've been getting a duck egg a day.
From 40 ducks. That's not laying again.
I mean, it's better than 0.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm still not sure if they're like actually molting or whether it's still a vitamin issue. I need to probably check their vitamin water, which they have access to again.
I got an email about adding the vitamins straight to their feed once a day.
Okay.
And they told me I can't remember what vitamin is usually the culprit. So I'll go back to that email and I might try that for a week and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay. This week I was sitting outside with Tactical and I got the waft of dead rotting flesh. Why did I get the waft of dead rotting flesh?
Because something died.
What died?
A possum.
And where did the possum die?
Kind of wedged in up against your house.
And how long did it stay there?
I don't know.
So the other day, the dogs got a possum and he finished the possum and didn't move the body, which was kind of fun. You need to talk.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
not
sneeze.
moving a body at, whatever that was, like 10 o'clock at night.
And then in typical ADHD eraser mode, the possum no longer existed the next day, right?
Something like
Yeah.
that.
So it didn't exist until it smelled. And so
then it only existed for you.
Yeah, and then I kept reminding him and I was like, screw it. So then I had to find my shovel, which had walked off. And then I had to find the possum. I had no idea where the possum was. And you were not around. So I followed my nose to the possum. And then it's like, what do I do with this? Because I didn't want to put it in any of our existing compost piles because then that kind of resets the pile. And so I finally just dug a hole in the yard and buried the possum.
Okay.
So I planted it. But while I was doing that, guess what? There was a dead armadillo with all sorts of worms coming out of its gut right by where I buried the possum.
That was like a full 30 minutes of dog heaven.
Okay. And it was in the yard smelling too. Yeah. So I took care of the armadillo as well, sort of. You did the final chapter on it.
Yeah.
It was a big one too. Like that was like weighty. Like the possum, it was just like whatever. Like the armadillo. So I don't know. What do you guys do about like rotting varmints on your homestead? Because I'll tell you this, digging the hole for the possum when it hasn't rained for an entire month was not easy.
I would have just thrown it in the woods.
Well, so if I throw it in the woods, the dogs roll in it.
Maybe.
And I can still smell it if you don't throw it far enough in the woods. And what I didn't want to do was invite people over for partnering with trees on the permaculture homestead. And then what they're smelling is dead varmint. I know you don't care, but it is really offensive. Like it was a very strong smell. Other people care.
I'll take your word for it.
Also this week, 2 rats have died that I know of.
Oh, there's been more than that have died.
Yeah, so I keep getting up in the middle of the night and hearing crunch, crunch, crunch in my house. And I come out and I see a cat and a rat tail. And that's about it. And then in the morning, I make sure not to step over there because then there's intestines and whatnot left behind that I get to clean up. So Tigger, who is almost 18 years old, is, well, let's just say he's been doing a good job of hunting again, even though he's a bag of bones right now. And once again, the best rat control on the homestead is cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been after it. Mortimer's been bringing in mice and eating them. LT brought a mouse in and let it go, and we haven't found that one yet. So that's going to be a fun part of my week. The problem with cats and cat doors on the homestead is they will bring rodents in through the door.
I mean, it was debatable as to my favorite part of the week was either A, when I watched my dog literally do a nosedive up and off of a rock wall straight down on top of a rat. That was kind of impressive. And then there was the moment where I ran through the living room to lock the cat door because I saw it coming.
I think I was on with Amy Dingman at that time.
And you have no idea that I just ran through the living room, even though you watched me do it. And I get the door locked, walk back around the house, and there's a cat with a rat in its mouth standing there trying to figure out why he cannot get in through the cat door. And then he accidentally drops the rat, and the rat runs for its life, which did it no good.
Yeah, but it didn't end up in my house, so that's good. Pack Rat says he had a hole dug by a tree that was unused, planted a recently passed hen at the bottom, and then capped it with a large flat rock. So I should mention where I buried the possum, I put rocks over it, and the reason is that my dogs will go try to dig that up because they can still they can smell it. I can't smell it anymore. So that is a thing that you want to think about because other things will dig it up. And then you might as well not have buried the thing. I think that's why they put rocks over human graves too.
Probably.
So that like the bears don't come and get it. Right. Or whoever. I don't know why I went for bears first.
No.
Coyotes are probably more likely. But yeah.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, I guess it does depend where you are. Well, I think bears typically like they do eat meat, but they'd rather eat vegetative matter. Am I remembering that wrong?
I don't know. I think they go for whatever's easy.
And they may like prefer more alive and less rotted. But I don't know. Somebody knows about bears, let me know. Now I'm going to have to look that up. Yay! Another side quest, as Kiri would call it this week. The ducks have in fact not figured out there's a new body of water on the homestead, even though they've been darn close to it. And every time I talk about the swim spa, people are like, what are you doing to keep the ducks out? And the answer is nothing, because the ducks don't really know it's there. And my ducks don't fly, except for the Muscovies could fly. Like the one risk is the Muscovies could fly if their wings aren't clipped, which I think right now they are not.
No.
And they could land on the water. But they would have to identify that that water was there. And I do have a cover on it most of the time. So it's just a black thing. And they haven't been roosting on it because that would actually piss me off.
Yeah.
There would be probably some Muscovy hunting starting to happen if they started doing that.
Oh, now you find a reason to want to put a bullet to them.
You don't? You want to kill the Muscovies?
I've had reasons too before. And you were vehemently opposed to it.
Yeah, I always wanted the Muscovies to make more Muscovies, and they haven't, though.
Yeah.
Well, they've made a few, but they haven't nurtured them or raised them. And I don't know if that's due to duck chaos in the yard of two kinds of ducks being here, or if it's just these particular Muscovies are not duck raisers. Like the last one got squished by its mom.
Yeah.
So... and it was just one. Like we keep getting a litter of one. So I don't know what would happen. Also, by nature of how my property is, because I got these from somebody who had too many Muscovies because the Muscovies were reproducing all the time on her homestead. So it might just be that my homestead is not suited for duck reproduction because the khakis haven't been terribly successful at that either.
Yeah, and the khakis... like, I don't know what's up with them. They want to build a nest somewhere in the yard, and then it's like, for some reason or another, it gets abandoned like 20 days in.
Yeah, like shortly, like you got one more week, man. Just hang out for one more week. So the way we've reproduced the ducks is by grabbing their eggs and incubating them, which we may want to do that with the Muscovies, but that requires us making a whole Muscovy cage where the Muscovies stay. Which is difficult. Yeah. So like it has to have a top.
Yeah.
Even with clipped wings. Like they really want out.
Yeah. I've watched a Muscovy with clipped wings manage to get up on top of the barrel and then leap from the barrel over the leap/fly/fall over the fence.
Yeah. I forgot to mention on Noster that we are live on Noster. So I wonder if there's anybody over there.
I don't know.
I don't have that screen up. Okay. I will get that screen up in a bit. So that's what's up with the ducks. We got a processing date for the rams in
not 2026.
January. Yeah. So I should have made this call in September, and I knew that in September, but I was not really sure that I would have the size of ram I wanted by end of November, early December, which was when I thought I would have the right size. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been like, I really need to call them. I really need to call them. I really need to call them. Right. And I haven't called them. So finally today, as I was sitting down to do the notes and about to write in the show notes, I still haven't called them. I was like, I know. Instead of writing that in the show notes, I'll call them. And so January 15th is the processing day for the rams. Right after this show, I am adding the product on the ram for sale. You can buy half a ram or a whole ram. And then we'll just take your deposit. You can actually do your own cut sheet to choose how it's cut. I'm not doing quarter sheep anymore because it's too hard to figure out how to break that into a quarter.
In about 2 or 3 weeks, we'll also have a live ram for sale.
Really?
I have one that I'm willing to sell live.
He needs to be there longer than that.
He's already been there for almost 2 weeks.
Until I know he's closed the deal.
I don't know if you're going to know he closed.
Yeah, well, I don't think he has in that case, based on my experience with other rams.
Okay.
So he may need more time to mature.
Okay.
And they are fertile through May.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's him like agreeing with me on camera and then not agreeing with me at all.
I am only going to be able to run 3 flocks for so long.
Yeah. So the thing is, while I was on with the butcher, they said, if we have a cancellation, we'll call you, which means we need to get ready to move those rams because I have never had an issue where they don't have a cancellation.
Yeah.
So, and then they actually kind of like to have people on the cancellation list because if they have a cancellation and don't have people on the cancellation list, then they're SOL. And I think last time I got a date at that butcher really quickly, it was because they had just happened to have a cancellation that day and it was only 1 ram. So the fact that it's 4 rams this time is part of the issue. I should actually call her back and say, like, if you need just 1 or 2 at a time, we can do that too.
It'd be preferable to just take them all.
Yeah, it would be preferable to take them over. And at this point, if I get too irritated, we might just do the butchering here. But I say the word, but like during Christmas rush is not the best time for me to be butchering.
Any time in between now and the date that we have scheduled is not really convenient.
Yeah. Well, also because I'm flying to California to help with my mom's knee surgery at some point in January. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. So just remember, guys, call 6 months in advance and get your date. And then you're in a much better place with and I know this, like I could get him in at another butcher that's way more expensive, but I didn't feel like making that change.
Yeah.
So I could have, but yeah, I haven't noticed a quality difference between the 2 butchers. So then I'm like, so the difference is that one has more space because their prices are higher, which is, and they can get your animals in. So there you go. So I noticed that the sheep are done with the outer ring. Are they on Bill Bray's right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So the rams have gone all the way to the outside of my property since we moved them over here. We moved them 3 weeks ago.
No, it's been
4 weeks. 3 weeks.
It was before Self-Reliance.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we moved them right after Self-Reliance.
I thought it was before.
I don't
Pretty
remember.
sure it was.
Okay. I don't have the calendar in front of me. So, it would be great to have another 60 or another 30 days before they go back to their first paddock, which is not going to happen, right?
It will. I don't remember the math in my head, but it will have been over 2 months.
Oh, by the time they get back?
Yes, to the original paddock.
So how are you? So now they're going to be going through my yard, right?
Yes. And I still haven't completely decided how I'm going to do that. Like, I know at least their next paddock, I know where I'm probably going to break everything off at. And then it's a question of like, there's a section in between the cabin and the workshop that's like, I don't know, 15 feet wide. I would really love to put them on that because there's a bunch of Vinca over there that I would like them to just destroy. But it's just kind of like, is it worth it to try to run some really weird fencing in this one little spot, or do I just throw the fencing up over here and just block that part off because it's easier?
Right.
So that's the debate that I'm about to start getting into. And I kind of got the same thing. There's an area that's like 6 feet wide that runs up the side of the driveway where there's some hard fence, and like I haven't run them in between the fence and the driveway, and it's like there's like you're not putting step-in post over there. Like the whole stretch you can maybe get 2 step-in posts in, so it means you gotta lug step-in posts that are bolted to cinder blocks up there. And it's like, is it worth lugging those around just to be able to run them for 5 blades of grass?
Well, you have a garden cart now.
Yeah. I mean, that does make it easier, but it's still like, do I want to go through the effort for this little bit of square footage where it's not really going to do anything?
And welcome to our Noster viewers. I usually announce at the beginning of the show that we're live on Homestead Happenings Day, and I did not. So then I just popped it out there, and I know there's a few of you there. If you have a question, I will be monitoring that on my other monitor. So feel free to ask, or if there's a topic you want to hear about our homestead, go for it. Part of the challenge of rotating the sheep through the sort of the zone 1 homestead and the zone 2 homestead is that there are things we don't want sheep to eat in the zones. So when you do a paddock, when he does a paddock, he has to keep them off the fodder trees, or he has to keep them off the herbs he just planted down by the pond, or he has to keep them off my garden or the food forest, or I don't even like, or whatnot. Yeah. So there's always like, there's an oasis in the middle of the thing that has to be fenced in as well. So that's part of the challenge. And I think that's, is that why you did the outer ring first, or is it just because you're an engineer?
No, I mean, there was several reasons for that. I mean, it was easier to not have to fence off all of the trees that we don't want them to have access to. There was also an aspect of, like, especially where they are right now, I'm going to leave them on that paddock until I absolutely have to move them, because I want them to completely devastate everything that is there. Like, get them to eat the roots if they would. Like, there's just a bunch of stuff in there that's been growing for years, decades, that just needs to get eaten to the ground. And then once that happens, it makes it a lot easier for me to go through and like clear out all of the stuff that you don't actually want there and start throwing seeds for anything but that.
Yeah, I noticed that you threw seed out near the swim spa yard and that the ducks came and ate all the seeds.
I don't know if they got all of it, but they probably got a significant portion of it.
Yeah, Pack Rat says if it's fenced from all the animals, you have to trim it yourself.
Yep.
Also true. That in fact, it's time to chop and drop on the swales again, which that's a whole nother chapter. My intention is to make a trip to wood chip Mecca in the county, hand shovel the wood chips into the back of the truck, which is super fun, and then bring them back here and dump them in a pile so that I can put them on the swales. Also, I need to get my butt outside and get more leaves, or get any leaves for mulching with. So there's a lot of that sort of thing that needs to happen, which at the speed of work I am working is 50-50 if I get the leaves actually done this year right now, because I still haven't gotten the garlic planted. And that takes precedence. So the garlic was supposed to be in by the end of October. and it's not. And I have a feeling that a combination of that and rabbit tractor are happening on Sunday. What I like last weekend, my intention was Sunday would be dedicated to that, but instead I roasted coffee and I was tired because I'd been out to the Eversoles, which anytime I go out of town like that, from a planning standpoint, I need to acknowledge that coming back from that, it's like you have to unpack, do the laundry, like start all of that stuff. And then if you don't build in that cushion there and just go straight into work, you end up with more of a mess than if you had just taken the time you need. So I took the time I needed on Sunday, and then that meant that no rabbit tractor happened. So instead, I jury rigged a rabbit tractor. What do you think of my jury rigged rabbit tractor?
I think you're gonna have to be very careful moving that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of killing rabbits?
Because you're gonna catch their feet in between the wires.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I think it can be done though. I basically took a dog crate and I couldn't find any welded wire to use, so I took another grate to put under it and then put that down. So, yeah. Hey, Alabama has a question. I have 2 kinds of onions. Will they cross-pollinate? I haven't gotten my garlic in the ground either. So, what are your thoughts on cross-pollination? Don't walk out yet. She's a lying liar. It's because I didn't feed her yet.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes, they will. Same species, they will cross-pollinate.
I don't know how they. So I gave that to you because I didn't know the answer. So the question.
I am fairly certain. I'm not aware of any, same species that would not cross.
Well, the garlic won't because they don't propagate by seed.
Okay.
So you're taking the bulbs, and that's just the same plant. It's like a clone.
Okay.
So the question is, question
is garlic putting off pollen?
Well, and then tomatoes, when you save the seeds. Okay, here we go. I'm looking it up for you. Tomatoes, when you save the seeds, they don't cross-pollinate most of the time because they pollinate themselves. Like for my ones that I grow. But you can manually cross-pollinate them. So isolation difference. When saving seeds from onions, separate varieties by 800 feet up to half a mile. To produce seed from onions, select as many perfect onions as you can spare for seed production. Store them through the winter in a cool, dry, dark place. Replant them in early spring at the same bulb depth and spacing as they were when harvested. So something I know that seed savers do is they put a bag over the flower if it's really sensitive like that. They don't have things near each other, and then they put a bag over the flower and they pollinate it from what they want it pollinated from. So I don't know if that helps you. I haven't, I've actually never propagated onions, so I haven't really dove deeply into that. So they do say 800 feet, but I think you can manufacture, like you can get away with having a bag. And then the question is, so one's a regular onion, one's a really sweet onion. So it just depends on how much you care about them cross-pollinating too. Because the way I would cross-pollinate garlic is by letting it go to flower, collecting garlic seed, growing it from seed. And then when you grow it from seed, your seeds should already be in trays right now for your onions. And it takes like a really long time because you'll plant them and then you'll get bulbs, little ones. And then you'll nurture those. Like if you're in a climate where they don't have to be taken out and protected from the cold, you can nurture those and then plant them the next spring. Or you leave them in the ground and they eventually turn into onions. So onions have a really long growing cycle from seed. So people start them in seed well in advance of, because you want it in a bulb by spring that then can get bigger. That's the deal with onions. Okay. So I noticed that you worked on the prepper pantry this week and you took the part out that you were talking about last week. What did you find when you took it out?
I found that the original thing that I thought I was probably going to do was totally not going to work. Okay,
so what did you find out in real terms instead of generic terms?
What I was assuming was that once I get this old board off, that I would be able to tack a new board in its place. And what I found when I pulled it off was like there was literally groups of 3 nails basically in the same spot. And it's like, well, the end of that third board that I'm leaving in place is now, you know, so full of holes that I will never be able to, unless I run like a 6 or 7 inch screw into it, which I'm not going to do. I'll never be able to get anything to hold to that very securely.
Do you have a plan?
Kind of.
Do you want to talk to Ken Esch about it?
It's definitely something that I would like to run by Ken Esch.
Well, he's going to be here this weekend.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, so you should make a point of saying, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah. So
the prepper pantry project has been very slow because he had to look at it, or somebody had to look at it after taking this one board out, which when I say just taking this one board out, it's not a just situation. It's like everything in my house was engineered not to be taken apart ever. So then when you need to take it apart, it's an enormous pain in the butt. Like down to there is concrete between 2 layers of roofing material, metal roofing on my roof. So every time you have to cut a hole in the roof, it's like you're going to go through blades of things and you're cutting through concrete.
Yeah.
How do you like cutting through concrete?
It depends on the concrete.
I mean, having that conversation with a roofer every time is super fun too. I'm like, so when you cut into my roof, there's 2 layers of metal with concrete poured between them. And they're like, no, there's not. And I'm like, okay, but I'm just telling you for your bid that you should plan on cutting through 2 layers of metal roofing with concrete between it. And they're like, that can't be. And then they write a bid and then they're sad because it turns out they're like, there really is concrete here. I'm like, I told you there was concrete there. And I know I'm just a woman and know nothing about construction, but I do know about my roof. That's my sarcastic voice.
Yeah.
But that's what they're thinking. They're like, she's full of crap. She's an idiot. She doesn't know anything about how things are built. I'm like, I know how my roof is built. So what does that mean for the prepper pantry?
I mean, it's going to take me a little, like if I'm framing this in, it's going to take a little bit longer because it's going to require cutting some weird angles on multiple boards as opposed to just cut the ends off of a board and tack it up there. So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet. I kind of had a chance to get in there and take a couple of measurements and stick a level in there and be like, okay, it would come out to about here and whatnot, but I still got to actually like go in there and stare at it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, so Packrat says it's going to mean masonry bits, tin snips, and swearing.
I am really trying to avoid masonry bits or masonry anything.
Yeah. But we'll see how that goes. We got rain yesterday for the first time in a month, really. Like we got some on Saturday, just enough to take out my electrical service to the roasting shack. But we got like real rain yesterday. What's your impression of what the rain did?
It was enough to help everything that's growing. It's not really like I'll be interested to see. I've got some old T-posts that need to come out.
Did you close the outdoor electric panel service?
Yes.
Okay, good. Ooh, I just thought of that now, which is way too late to think of that.
Yeah.
Did you look in there to see if it was getting wet?
No.
Okay.
I should.
We need to look in there and see if it got wet again, because if it's still getting wet, I'm going to be extra pissed off.
Yeah, it should not be getting wet again, but I do need to open it up and look.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was enough to get the ground wet, and I think it's supposed to rain again today, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. I think we get a second wave of rain, but maybe we don't. The second wave of rain is actually what works really well. Like initially plants are already greener. They're like, oh, thank you. Finally some water, right?
Yeah.
But then also we have to get like for the ground to really absorb it, another layer would be good. Because like right now it's just been soaking. Why are you looking amused? Is it because my dog's being so
Yeah,
insistent?
that's why I pulled my legs up, is so that you could get in on this guilt trip.
Yeah. Chestnut wanted to join the live stream. So,
Chestnut wants food.
yeah.
You're not right,
Hi.
Chestnut.
Okay. We need to move khaki. What are we going to do about that?
I kind of think that the easiest thing to do is going to be to run another fence part of the way across the paddock that she is in and try to get her to go into that smaller area, close it off, and then open up in between that small area and the paddock that we want her to be in, because she's, out of all of the ewes, she is the most standoffish, and not even with just like standoffish with me, like standoffish from the rest of the sheep. She's kind of a loner. I don't know what.
Yeah, she's a loner sheep. She's hard to catch.
Yeah.
It was hard to get her babies because she was keeping them off from everybody else, and that is just her attitude. That actually makes me think about how long do we keep her as a reproducer if we want to move the flock towards more friendly and easier to handle.
Yeah.
Because the other three, who were pretty skittish for their first year here, will let us get close to them now with bribes.
Yeah.
And then little sheep will just super easy to catch. And I'd love to set the culture over there to be more friendly. And it's just, sheep are just wary of everything. And then we could take all the offspring next time and bottle feed all of them.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen. We could wait till they were weaned and then separate them from their moms and force them to live with us in a small pasture for 2 months. And then maybe they get over it. Like the boys over here have actually become a little bit more friendly.
Yeah, and that's partially just because I've had a little bit of a chance to, when I go to feed them at night, it's like I'm going to dump the food in the bowl and I'm going to squat down next to the bowl and I'm just going to sit there. And if you want the absolutely star-spangled awesome treat that I just dropped into this bowl, you're going to have to get close to me. And it's basically just wait for them to let their taste buds overwhelm their fear.
And so far, animal crackers have not worked for bribing.
No.
Miles
really likes animal crackers. Same.
I was told on good authority that Bruni really likes them from Bruni's former owner.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll have to try a little bit more. Even little sheep's not all that interested in animal crackers. So maybe animal crackers aren't as good as they used to be.
That's very likely.
Yeah, very, very likely. So yeah, the whole sheep skittish thing is something to deal with. This week, I started sort of live streaming when I'm swimming in the swim spa, just for the fun of it. I'll probably move that off this YouTube channel and onto the Sauce Swims YouTube channel that does exist. I just don't have it hooked up to my phone properly for some reason. And that for me, it's an accountability thing because my goal is to swim every single day. Unless there's lightning or something, like a reason like that, not to. But the whole purpose of getting the swim spa was so I could swim every day. So now I need to swim every day. And it's also kind of funny because I'm learning how to swim. Swimming in a swim spa is different than swimming in a lap pool. Particularly, I haven't figured out the best way to get the best workout in. Although yesterday I for sure worked harder than I had been. Like my heart rate actually got up. And then the other thing is it'd be really nice to listen to music while swimming. So I got this headset that's Bluetooth that you can wear underwater. But when you go underwater, the Bluetooth disconnects. So like I'll be swimming and I'll put my head up and it's like 3 beats. 3 beats. 3 beats. So I was like, well, I know where I am in the song. And the reason I want the music is I will know approximately based on how long songs are. I've been going 10 minutes at, 90%, and then I'll drop it to 70% or whatever. And that helps with the whole workout thing. But as a result of this, I've been doing, after each workout, I'm doing one swim spa maintenance thing every day just to keep it on a cycle so that I don't end up with crappy water, right? And so the other day, I just like opened up the filter thing to look at it because I wasn't sure what to do that day. And the filters were just totally clogged with suspended clay. So my water has suspended clay in it, which if you leave it on a shelf in a mason jar, it doesn't settle out. It's just there. But it does settle out in all my appliances. And over time, it gets stuck in the pipes. And we have a variety of filters filtering the suspended clay out, but none of them work that great. And so what was cool is I could take the pool filters out and rinse them. And then I told Tactical, hey, maybe we should look at some sort of pool filter system because it's actually bringing the clay out. And the only challenge there, and he walked away for this conversation, which means that he can't give his input now. But he always does that. Like, he doesn't understand that this was the one conversation in the live stream we were supposed to have about the pool filters. Oh, you're back now. So the suspended clay is filtered out by the pool filters. And then he asked me, like, can you get the make and model of that? So what are you thinking on the pool filters?
I mean, the main thing is I want to know if those are supposed to be washable filters. Because if they're working to actually get the clay out and they are in fact washable, then it might be worth looking into. So, I mean, it's a possible option.
Right. And so what would that look like though? So let's say, I think they are washable because you do rinse them. That's how you keep them clean. And you can put a little, like a pool maintenance guy will put a mixture of something acidic with water. I was learning this from Margot yesterday because she knows a ton about maintaining water. She's like, yeah, you take the filters out and pool guys will take a Gatorade bottle because it's big, drill a hole in the lid, put a little bit of acid diluted with water, spray that on the filters, like out of the bottle, and then spray it off with the hose to clean out any like buildup of oils or things that can happen in there as well. Well,
I mean,
but over time they will wear out. Like I will have to change the actual filters too.
Yeah. I mean, any filter you have is going to wear out at some point. It's just a matter of, I mean, I've had legit metal strainers that's like a heavy gauge metal that, you know, eventually the bottom rusted out.
Right. That will happen.
So it's just a matter of like, the filters we've got now do an okay job. They're 25 micron. So if you can get something that is a 25 micron filter that's washable, then I could actually plumb something in to where we could back flush the filters. And when we back flush, the water would just go into a drain pipe.
Yeah. Chris wants to know what kind of pump are you using? And I assume Chris is asking not about the pump in the swim spa, but about the pump on the well system. So here's how the well system works, Chris. The spring comes up and there's like a little area cistern like thing where the water collects, and it pumps from that into a storage tank, and then it pumps from the storage tank to my house. I do have another storage tank up here. It could pump to a second storage tank. We just don't have that hooked up because we are not getting the suspended clay out between those two tanks right now. And so then I was like, well, I don't want to fill up all the new pipes with sediment if we don't figure out how to deal with sediment. Now, between the lower cistern and the storage tank, we have 2 spin down filters and a sediment filter. And then up at my house, before the water comes into my house, there's another sediment filter. And for his cabin, there's another sediment filter.
Yeah. So
there are a bunch of sediment. And they like, what made me think of this topic is, once again, we need to change the sediment filters, right? Yeah. So that needs to be done before the workshop tomorrow, ideally, at least at the house level. And what happens down at the pump house is from the lower cistern to the storage tank, when that one gets too clogged, then water stops refilling the tank, and then we run out of water. We go down and say, dang it, we should have checked that sooner. So I checked it, and it needs to be changed too. So yesterday I was like, if you're at Lowe's, get at least 2 filters, because I know at least 2 of the filters need to be changed right now. So that's what we're dealing with. And so what do you think that looks like? Like, would we put sort of like another area? Because the way my swim spa is it has its own little baffled off from the rest of the system area where the water is. The water comes in through that and pulls through the filters and then circulates back into the swim spa, right? And because it goes through the filters, they pull out the sediment. So then I pull them out and I rinse them off, and then I put them back in. But what I know is it took a few days for the 2,000 gallons to get the sediment filtered out of it to begin with. And what we have going on here is that the water has, like the water is sort of continually pumping to the house on demand. So it's almost like if we had that set up down at the pump house with the storage tank, it would clarify that water and then pump the clarified water up here. And then if we had additional sediment filters, on the times where it's refilled with the clay water, it would help with the extra clay water.
What I am curious about is whether I can take the reusable filters from your pool and put them in a housing like what our sediment filters already are in, but plumb it in such a way that I can backfeed the filter housing to flush the filter out. Not having like the cistern recirculating through a filter. So it would be basically the same thing that's already down there, but with a reusable filter that can get back flushed as opposed to a disposable filter.
Yeah. So Chris is talking about his pool. We have a sand filter and pumps through saltwater system on our pool. I did not put a saltwater system in on the swim spa because they told me it would ruin. I have a giant pump that I swim against like resistance, and they said it would wear out that pump because of the saltwater impact on the pump. So we asked about a sand filter on this system, and they told me I'd be changing the sand about once a month with as much water volume as goes through that. But they do have a customer who has a sand filter set up that pre-filters suspended clay out of his system. And then he has a series of like, there's a let it settle out area, and then it goes through the sand filter, and then it does something else. And I was like, great, what's his name? And they're like, I don't remember, but every so often he has to come in here and buy whatever supplies he's using for that system. And that's for his house water, not his pool water. The sand filters cannot handle higher pressure, like consumer grade pressure. Ask me how I know. How do I know that, Tactical? So way back when I discovered the suspended clay problem 17 years ago, we went to a water treatment expert, and they told me to put a sand filter in like you have, Chris. And what I did is paid somebody to put that in. And then 60 PSI is what goes through my system, which is not as high water pressure as city water, by the way. But it was in for about 2 days. And then I heard boom and had no water pressure at the house. And I went down to the pump house, and 60 PSI is too much water pressure for a pool, a filtration system. And it had blown its top off, and there was sand and water all over the pump house. And then I had to plumb back around that. The people who sold me the sand filter returned my money because it was on their advice. I had put it in, and they didn't know that you couldn't have the like consumer grade water through that. That being said, there's no reason to have 60 PSI between my lower storage area for water and the storage tank that we pump to the house from. It's pressurized from that upper one to the house. No need for pressure for the refill one, which means in theory you could go through a sand filter. But then when I asked about that, they were like, it would clog up so fast all the time that you have to think of something else to do. So, yeah. And then Chris says on the pool, he only has to do 1 or 2 changes of water. The problem with putting that on on a house water system is that I think we're going through a lot more water per year than is in a pool.
Yeah.
In theory, I don't know, because there can be like 20,000 gallons in the pool if you have a big pool. I have about 2,000 gallons in the swim spa, and it like the single rinse of those filters was almost enough to get all the suspended clay out. I will be rinsing them not today. So today after my workout, I'm going to do the stabilizer for the chlorine I put in yesterday. And then the next day I'm going to rinse the filters again. So, and I talked to Margot, and I can use a mineralizer to reduce the need for chlorine. So those are in the mail, and in another week or two, I'll be putting those in as well. So it's like, I'm learning a lot just about water maintenance. The person who talked to me at the swim spa store when we did the initial chemical consult was confused about the difference between fluid ounces and ounces by weight. And so they didn't quite get me the right instructions, but luckily, like, it printed out a computer printout that I could read. And the only piece of information I need that I don't have is like, how many gallons do I really have? Chris has 10,000 gallons and knows how many gallons he has. I did the calculation, and I thought I had closer to 3,000 gallons, and it says on the paper 1,850. And I'm not sure they even have the right spa model on that, because the lady was really confused the whole time about who I was, what I had bought from them. And I need to just talk to the manager and be like, okay, what name is my account under, and how do they find it when I need to ask something specific? And I'll probably make that call today too, because I have a couple things on I'm going to be using the warranty on this as well, because there's a couple things that are not right. And that stands to reason, because the thing had to be delivered to my house on my road. We'll just put it that way. And I think they're the result of a lot of shaking in transit. So, and that's why you want a decent warranty on something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's sort of opened up. We've had an ongoing discussion about water treatment our whole time, right?
Yeah, it's always been an issue. And it doesn't help that, like, I just tried to Google some stuff on reusable filters, and it's like the interesting things you see on the internet.
Yeah. Well, Google doesn't actually work anymore.
No.
So, and I don't even use Google as my search most of the time anymore, unless I have to. But they're all kind of like broken. Like, even the non-Google search engines, unless my people on Noster have a better suggestion for me. Yeah, it's just
most of the non-Google search engines still use
Google
as the base.
Yeah. So with the integration of, it's a combination of things going on. One, like, their algorithms have gotten so crazy that they just keep you away from real information. They're trying to make money through advertising. And then there's a lot of content created by AI now that interferes with your search. So, like, you'll get all of these AI articles that may or may not be accurate. And so, like, the experience, like, way back in the day, you could just plop some terms into Google search and get, within the first 2 pages, some reliable stuff, even some stuff written by Joe Hick guy who just knows how to do freaking well maintenance because he's been maintaining his well for 40 years. Right. So, yeah, it's, that's been, I would love to figure out if there's another search engine. I haven't looked real hard, but what way to search for information that would get me information to actual information and not AI stuff or the most popular listicles of 2024. Listicles help because I'm like, okay, here's 10 brands of the thing I'm looking for. But like in the old days, I could punch in that like yesterday on the show, Amy Dingman had this old fashioned cast iron corn. Is it called a corer? But basically it takes the corn off the corn cob.
Yeah.
So you can use it for feed or whatever, or grind it into flour. And if I were to type that into a search engine, I would probably get a few eBay results, but I would get a bunch of brand new ones, which is not what I'm looking for. And I'd add the word antique and I just wouldn't find it. And 6 years ago, I could put in a make and model of an antique whatever, and it would like I'd find all these listings for sale that people had of these things and how to use them and all of that. And that's all just like not there. It's there. I just don't get it. Ecosia is the search I use. So far, so good. I'm going to try that out, Angie, because yeah, just it's really frustrating. So he's writing it down. Okay. So I don't ever have peppers this late in the season. Do you? So
Sometimes.
talk to me and don't search because you're real slow when you're also doing that. You cannot multitask.
Okay. It depends. Usually at this point in time in the year, it's like we'll get that cold spell and the peppers are like, all right, we're done. We're just clinging to life, but I've still got peppers on and I'll leave them on until like if it looks like we're gonna get like a hard freeze, then I'll go on and clear off everything. And I kind of did that the other day. It was like, well, they're probably done. I'll just leave everything on there. And now the boat that my peppers are all in is basically like, well, we just got hit. It's basically the end of the year. We're going to keep putting peppers out. Maybe, well, I put on a flower or two, and then all the peppers that I do have are just like small and tiny and just, I mean, they're still doing something, just not acting like a pepper plant should.
Yeah. So in contrast, my jalapenos are still putting on jalapenos and they're banging. Like I keep harvesting off them. I have some more red ones to harvest, but yeah. Tim wants to know if anybody's tried Wolfram Alpha. I tried it like 15 years ago or whenever it came out. It was a long time ago. I should look at that again, but I think they are operating on Google. But I could be wrong about that. They weren't originally doing that, but then there was some sort of an alliance between the two that happened. And I could be speaking out of my nose. I know Sue Zoldak works with those, like with that whole network of folks. So she can probably correct me, which would be great. But I'll try it as a search engine too. Like that's fine. I haven't touched Wolfram in a long time. So yeah. And Packrat says, didn't know Wolfram had a search function. They did when they came out. That's kind of what they had. And you could find like links to scientific information, which was kind of cool with that back in the day. I don't know how they've developed since last time like when I first used them, they also weren't getting me the information I was looking for, which was not what they were designed to do. So it's not a critique on them at all. It's more that I was looking for a bridge between the scientific articles and the information I was seeking. But now I'll go back and play with them too, because that's actually worth doing. So we're harvesting the peppers. I'd like to get all the peppers in this weekend and get them processed because this is my last weekend in town before I go out of town for Jack Spirko's workshop. Okay. And I can guarantee you while I'm gone, what's going to happen? A freeze. We'll finally get the real sort of winter weather while I'm gone, I'm sure. So my goal is to have everything ready for me to leave. Yeah. And that involves a banana tree, some garlic, and getting anything else in the harvest that we've been putting off because it was still growing. Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to happen. Anyway, I'm at the end of my list and I don't see any other questions from you all. So we're going to wrap it up. Don't forget, if you want a half of a lamb or a whole lamb, they are 8 months old right now. And they're 7 months old right now. And they'll be delicious. You will get a younger lamb than you get at the grocery store. Head over to Living Free in Tennessee and put your deposit down. You can choose a whole one or a half one, and then we'll get with you on what you want your cut sheet to be and go from there. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.